what we're going to do is we need to make sure we go to Google Classroom and we need to download the file from Google Classroom. So you'll go in, you'll use the three dots to open a new window. And then your download button usually pops up here, or if it's not there, it should be under the next three buttons. Once it appears, like at the bottom here, you can drag it right into Illustrator and open the file here. So let me go through the first few steps because they're kind of repetitive, and then you guys will work on your own in that part. So you'll notice like I've got my layer panel here on the right, just like I would in Photoshop. So all of my work right now is on this kind of reddish layer, that eyeball there. Okay. So we want to like work on our own special blank layer, just like we would in Photoshop. So if I want to make a new layer, it's just this little plus sign at the bottom. And you could even rename it if you wanted to, like by double clicking on it. I'll call it my work. And that way I don't get like mixed up with like the template I made to start. So let's just start with the head to begin with. So based on this little doodad on his head shape, and his neck shape, what basic shape that they already give you would you start with? Should we start with a circle? No, I wouldn't start with a circle. What shape would you start with? Like a rectangle square shape. Good. So when you start, there's a few ways you can approach it. If you want to pick out your color now, you could do that. I'm down with that. It doesn't have to be like the Lego color. You could change it. And some people don't want a stroke on the outside. That's fine too. I'll pretty much leave that part up to you. And what I'm going to do is I can kind of line up my mouse. Zoom it up here a little bit. I can line up my mouse with the corner here to get it as close as I can. I'm not looking for absolute perfection, but we want it to be pretty close. Something like that for my head. Now, I need to curve those edges. Do you remember what we could click on the square in order to make my corners go from really sharp to really curved? The little circles, right? So if I use my black arrow, you can see if I hover on that circle, that little curve shows up. And I can start pulling it in and just matching it approximately. Something like that is good enough for me. You can always go back in and scooch it upward later too. Okay, so that's our head. Okay. And it would be the same idea pretty much with your this little doodad on top. It's going to bring it back to a rectangle. Black arrow. Drag the shape in. And again, you may have to go back in and sort of adjust the shape a little bit so you don't get too much of it curving in. And then our neck just looks like a plain rectangle for now. I could use my arrows too if I want to shift some stuff as well. And we'll start there for now. If you want to start making like facial features on it, you can while you wait for me. If not, don't worry about it. It's not super important. Do we have any questions so far? Okie dokes. And we're going to go back to the body here. So the one that's probably the trickiest from the rest of the torso and legs is going to be like I think this is like your chest torso area here. And it turns out it's like a trapezoid. So that's the most complex one. Everything else here is just like a simple rectangle. And I can even show you how to curve the feet if you want to make them a little bit more rounded like a shoe at the end too. Otherwise, not too many new skills here. So I'm going to start with a rectangle again here for the body and make it like the widest part here. But in order to shrink it in like a trapezoid, I need to use something called free transform. So in the new updates, they kind of put it in a weird spot. We're going to hit these like three little dots in the lower toolbar here. And it gives you like all these other tools you could use, which is nice. And if you scroll down to this box here where it says modify, it looks like a picture frame with an arrow and it says free transform or letter E like Edward. So I'll kind of click away and you'll notice it gives you like this little mini menu. And we use something called perspective distort. And you'll get these big circles in the corner of your boxes. So once you pull them in, Ta-da. You'll get that sort of trapezoid shape you were looking for. So we're like 3/4 of the way there. Now, I need my shoulders to curve, but I don't need like the bottom of the shirt to curve. So instead of using like my black arrow to work on my corners, I'm going to use my white arrow. Why do you think I'm using my white arrow this time instead of the black arrow? Mm-hmm. If I use the white arrow, you'll notice this little like dot pops up next to the corner here. And the white arrow is going to allow you to just edit one corner, not the whole thing. Okay. And then I can go in on the other side and work on the other corner, but it won't do like the entire project, like the whole torso, which is good. Okay. And then, of course, we can go back to our black arrow when we want to work on the whole thing and adjust the size as need be for that part. Okay. And one more thing, and then I'll let you work on your own. If you would like to curve your feet a little bit more, you don't want them to be so blocky, you could do the same thing at the bottom again. Again, white arrow is when we want to work on one part, not all of it. And you could like curve part of it like that if you would like that. And the nice part is you could even copy and paste it. Control C, or like we learned even yesterday where you can like alt click, you can drag one over, and you could actually flip it. If you right click on it, transform, and you could reflect vertical and press OK, and then you could flip your shoe to the other side, which is pretty cool. You don't have to curve your shoe, it's just an option that's there if you would like it. So I'll leave you guys to finish up your rectangles for the rest of today. And if you have any questions, you can flag me down. So the arm is going to take a few new skills, as will like his little claw hand as well. So in order to start it and in order to make it perfectly equal, we're going to do everything, the whole arm, wrist, hand, and then we're going to copy it and flip it. Otherwise, we'll never get the exact same side and we'll never get the exact same angle too. So it actually saves us a lot of time. So I'm going to start with my rectangle again, and it's a little tricky, but we're going to give it our best shot. We try and make it the width of the arm, and then if I hover in the corner, I'm going to rotate it like this. There's a nice shortcut. If you use V on your keyboard, like V like Victor, it switches to your black arrow, and you just want to try and match to the angle that's already on here. And that's a little trial and error. Don't worry too much about that. And if it feels a little too long, like I think that was, I can shorten it up. Then what I like to do is you can either draw another rectangle or you could alt click and just kind of pull this guy down and finagle the angle here again. It's going to be shorter, which will be nice. Let's zoom in a little so you can see better. Try and match up the corner so I don't have any extra stuff there. And I'll push it up like that. The angle's not going to perfectly match, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's really just more important that you kind of match your elbow edge better there. That, honestly, I find the most irritating part. But you'll get there. So that's pretty close. Not bad. So the idea now is that we need to make the arm into like one big, like one object instead of just these two shapes. So we're going to use our Pathfinder, and that's going to fuse two shapes into one. So this is our Pathfinder. We go to Window, Pathfinder, and all these funky boxes show up. So the key to using the Pathfinder is making sure that both boxes are selected, because if they aren't, you're not really going to get anything happening. So I'm going to click on the upper shoulder, shift, select like the forearm part, and like you're not going to remember what all of these mean, but if you hover over it, this one says unite. So I need to unite the upper and lower arm, and ta-da, now they're one big piece, which is great. Then what do I need to do to the shoulder area of it? Curve it. So I can use that white arrow again. Click on that little white corner till that little dot pops up and pull it in to get the shoulder as best I can. So most of the arm is done, which is great. The only other thing we want to work on with the arm is making sure that like the sleeve hole is kind of curved. So in order to do that, we're going to use another Pathfinder function. So what shape would you attribute with the curve of the sleeve? Yeah, what shape? Would you use a rectangle? Would you use a circle, triangle? We're going to use a circle for the open end here. And what I like to do is pick like a weird color so that way I can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to pick pink. So I'm going to make like, kind of have to just wing it a little bit. So I'm going to make like an oval and I can tilt it so that this curved line attempts to match down here. So when I zoom in, it's helping allude to the fact that his arm is round. So I'm going to hit shift and hold down my arm and my circle. And I'm going to use the next mode here that says minus front. And bam, it cuts it off like that, which is cool. And I got actually pretty close with the placement, which is nice. So I get that nice curved shoulder effect, which is pretty cool. Okay. Question so far? All right, let's give it a shot. It's going to take a few attempts, and then we can get into the hand. Okay, so concerning the hand, we need to deal with some squares and some circles. So we don't want to like copy and duplicate this arm until we finish like the whole shoulder all the way down to the fingers. So for my wrist itself, I'm not sharing it. Sorry. Thank you for telling me. So I want to make sure that I'm using like my rectangle here for my wrist. Pretty straightforward, nothing crazy for my wrist. And then my hand is like a series of circles. So I'm going to do the outer part of it first and try and get the outer shape like that. Now it's kind of hard to figure out how to make that opening for its little claw hands. So it would be great if I could see through this circle. So how can I make this circle see-through? What function is that? Opacity, awesome. So you could just lower it at the top is where your opacity is. And then I'm going to put like an ovally shape in the middle. And I'm going to remove that oval opening just like I did with the sleeve edge. So I'm going to make a circle in a weird color, like an oval. Try and match that as best I can. And I'm going to select my oval, my hand itself, and I'm going to use that minus front again to cut it out. When I'm all done, I can bring my opacity back up so it's solid. And I think the last thing I need to remember is that I want to shift and select the wrist. And I want to use Unite to merge those guys together. This all seems to be in front. So if I right click, arrange, I can send it to the back. So that way it sits underneath like his little shirt there, which looks pretty cool. Actually should have moved it up a little bit more, but I can adjust that later. When I am ready, I don't think you'll be ready for this today. I could just draw like a shape around his whole little arm here. Alt click, drag his arm over, and then you could flip it, which is really cool. It will like mirror reflect it, and you can right click, transform, reflect, and bam! It's really cool. Now you have the perfect angle, and he's like symmetrical, which is nice. That's how we finish up the body.